Welcome to the C20 TST working group of G20, where we are dedicated to promoting access to and use of technology, enhanced security, and improved transparency for advanced societal well-being. This year, we are proud to announce that Amma, Shri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, is the chair of C20 India 2023, and we are excited to work under her leadership. In today's world, due to the advancement of technology, countries and communities are interconnected more than ever. Because of the increasing role technology has in our lives, it is crucial that we understand its impact on our societies. Our working group will explore the wide-ranging roles and influence of civil society organizations in promoting effective policymaking that leverages technology and strengthens security and transparency for the betterment of the world. We will focus on access and affordability of innovative technologies for social impact, with a special emphasis on vulnerable communities such as children, women, and the disabled. We aim to facilitate transparency through platforms for advocacy, comprehensive assessments, and implementation of regulatory measures. We will explore responsible use of the internet and media to ensure security and harmony for all. Our team will also explore the importance of integrating a compassion-driven outlook on technology-enabled innovation strategies. We are committed to addressing these issues by supporting long-term holistic solutions for building societies that are technology-empowered, secure, and held accountable by their transparency to their citizens. The insights from civil society organizations are vital for building technologies that enable automated decision-making and knowledge by supporting societal development based on equity and inclusivity. Join us in our efforts to promote access to technology, to enhance security, and to improve transparency for advancing the well-being of society. You are invited to participate in our webinars and policy workshops and share successful project examples with us. Together, we can make a positive impact on the world.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. Welcome to the C20 Technology, Security, Transparency Working Group Policy Discussion on Technology for Empowerment. As you know, the C20 is an official engagement group of the G20, and we're very, very honored to have you here. Looking forward to all of the knowledge that you can share with us and some policy recommendations. And we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to spend a few hours with us. So in India, typically they start any kind of event with a short prayer. So I would like to ask Amrita if she would be willing to do a short introductory prayer. Amrita, if you're here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amrita Suresh. So let us begin this August gathering today with a short prayer for the entire world. The meaning of the prayer that I will be chanting is, may all beings be happy. May everyone be without sorrows. May all of us see only good that is in everything. And may no suffering or sadness befall any being in the world. Let us now chant the prayer together. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्. With this prayer, let us now begin the session. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Amrita. But a bit of background, the G20 member countries represent around 85% of the global GDP and over 75% of global trade, with about 2/3 of the world's population. And we know it can often feel frustrating when trying to change the world, that no matter what you do, it feels like a drop in the water or a drop in the ocean. It may feel insignificant, but therefore the theme of this year's Civil 20 engagement is "You are the light," as you heard in the video many times. And this symbolizes the flame of hope, self-motivation, and selfless service. It's a reminder to ourselves that even though we may not directly experience the desired results of our efforts, our light is shining and is having a positive impact on the world. So next slide. Amrita University is one of the youngest and fastest growing academic and research institutions in all of India. The vision and mission of the university is threefold: education for life and living, compassion-driven research, and global impact. In its 20 years since its inception, it has scaled to become the 41st best university in the world, or in the top 50 in terms of impact. And it's been able to create, as per the Impact Rankings Forum for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Within India, amongst 1,000 universities ranked, Amrita is the 5th best. So quite an impact in a short amount of time, and very focused on compassion-driven research and having a large impact. So here you can see a little bit more about the C20 structure. Our chair is Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, and we also have a C20 principal coordinator, and he is a former, he is an ambassador, Vijay Nambiar. He's the main point of contact between the external stakeholders and the C20 working groups. So just the connection between Amrita, the chancellor of Amrita University is Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, and she's also a global humanitarian, doing a number of projects and programs for the poor, needy, and retraining, scaling, and trying to help folks with their livelihood as well. There's also a Secretariat Steering Committee and International Advisory Committee. I sit on the International Advisory Council for our working group. In total, there are 13 working groups on different thematic verticals for this year's C20. And if you'd like some more information about this, you can visit the Civil 20 net. So our working group is titled Technology, Security, and Transparency. We've adopted a holistic approach to developing a set of policy recommendations. We aim to collect input from relevant civil society organizations from all over the world, hence our Policy Dialogue Week this week that you're participating in. And we really believe that policy has to be evidence-based, and we're looking for you to share all of your experience and some recommendations so that we can take your input and take that forward as part of our policy recommendation. So on the next slide, in the C20 process, we are doing our best to reach out to the entire world. All of the green countries have CSOs and NGOs, nonprofits that we've contacted. If you have anyone in your network or in your collaboration that you'd like to be included, please feel free to let us know, and we can also invite them to our future events. So let's talk about this meeting. We're really focused on the output that we have to give. And the output for the C20 engagement group is really a policy packet of recommendations that will go to the G20 countries. And so this specific meeting will help formulate policy for the zero draft policy. Then that package will be refined and sent to the G20 leadership as our recommendations. And we may come back to you and ask you for clarification on some ideas, or even to potentially help on revising certain sections of the policy pack if you're willing. So the topic for today, technology for empowerment. There are many issues around access to technology, really affordability, and, bridging this big digital divide is key because it is something that really helps with economic equality, social mobility, economic growth, and democratic organization. So equal access to the internet goes hand in hand with that equal economy and social conditions that countries must ensure for their citizens. And so, as many of you guys know, because you're involved in this space, there are gaps that still happen with the digital divide, given availability, affordability, digital literacy, and interest. And this exists at international levels as well as at the neighborhood level. Countries that have high overall connectivity rates often still have stark inequalities in rural, remote areas or even urban areas. We saw this during COVID when schools closed down and went online, and you could see that there were some students who didn't have access to even computers or an iPad. They didn't have Wi-Fi. Some kids were sitting outside of restaurants where they could get Wi-Fi. The parents were going to work, and literally they just either didn't have access or they couldn't keep up. And so this is a big issue, and this is what we wanted to talk about today. The format that we're going to have is really having you share a little bit about the background, what you do, and the problem that you're trying to solve in your communities. And then if you have some key policy recommendations of what you would like to share with us so that we can take that up to the C20 and the G20. And we have a number of people today. We'd like to give the floor to anyone that would like to speak, but we also have to stay mindful of time. So I'll do best to keep the time and keep us on track and on topic. And I think after about a couple presenters, this is, some folks may be asking questions in the Zoom, in the chat. Some people might have questions. You can put your hand up, but we'll do the best to have some time for questions for our speakers as well. So what I would like to do now is turn this over to Jody Britton from Team for Tech and give you the floor so you can share. Thank you so much, Jody, for being with us today. I know you just came back from a trip, so you must be back to back. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
No, that's fine. Do you want to share slides, Allison, or do you want me to?
Here we go. Here are your
Awesome.
slides.
There you go. Good morning and good evening to everyone, no matter where you are. I'm Jody Britton. I'm the Director of Learning Technologies at Team for Tech. Wanted to tell you a little bit about our organization. We are based in the United States. However, we primarily have our efforts in Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin, and South America. If you want to switch over to the next slide really quick, I'm going to make this pretty short and sweet. We act as an impact accelerator. And what that means is that we provide mentorship and skill access to skilled volunteers. We provide ongoing training, workshops, courses, and a community space for our nonprofits that we support to connect. We also have access through our regional hub coordinators to local and international networks of support. Currently, we have regional hub coordinators in Southeast Asia and in Africa. Niagaki from Kenya is actually with me right now in New York City, and she was just with us in Austin as well. I'm getting ready to fly back home tomorrow. But they work, and then we're hiring right now for our South America position in Brazil. Those folks are really our linchpin because they do so much in providing that human-to-human network while we build out our space in the community to really build those skills. Then we also have access to we provide access to funding for a 3 to 5 year period. That really is to support infrastructure. We see a lot of people providing, someone just built a cell tower with that money. Other people have used that for devices, things of that nature. If you want to switch over to the the next slide there, I'll talk a little bit just about our impact. This is our 10th year anniversary, which is a big deal for our organization. Our organization was very much started as a result of some of the work that was going on with Intel, and Allison, you're very much aware of that. It needed to grow. So what we do is we bring together nonprofit organizations that we call our strategic partners. We make a 3 to 5 year commitment to those strategic partners. And in those 3 to 5 years, we work with kind of in phase 0 to 1, we really focus on making sure they have infrastructure, are thinking about all their needs, data security, data privacy, skills planning. Phase 2, we really bolster the skills of their staff and create kind of sustainability plans to make sure that they are developing digital literacy, digital fluency, and some digital citizenship skills in that space. And then ultimately, we want to see what they can do. And, by the end of our engagement, we want to make sure that they're able to empower local communities with the tools and skills that they have. Some of that happens through one of our nonprofit partners just developed an app for refugee young women to learn skills, coding and design skills, and deploy those skills through systems like Fiverr and other tools. There's so much going on. We have some people learning how to use Salesforce. We have some people learning just the very basics of web security and data privacy. So right now, as of today, we have supported 50 strategic NGO partners in over 20 countries with over $19 million in grants and pro bono consulting over the last 10 years. What's cool is that this last July, we launched our community of practice, which is a new way for us to scale our impact. And that online community of practice really is a space for them to engage with experts, learn together. We don't want to just keep reinventing the wheel. So if somebody gets a new cell tower, gets new equipment, and has a new opportunity to train folks, we want them to be able to share their story and learn together. So our community provides a space where they can have access to materials, equipment, policy, but for me, it's most important that they have access to what we call cohort implementation cohorts, and they work together through solving problems and shared problems. Our regional hub coordinators help with that too, but it happens in this virtual space where a lot of other people can learn. Today, after just about 7 months of operations, we have 190 nonprofit partners from over 46 countries, and cumulatively, those folks impact over 23 million learners. That's a lot of people in one space. So we are very focused on collecting stories and trying to make sure that they just that we don't take for granted the access and the network and just the human infrastructure that we have. Allison, if you go to the next slide, I'll wrap up here. As we reflect kind of on our last 10 years and what the data has really told us in this space, right? Like we all know we can't be the build or drop crew, we can't just build systems and drop them. We need to really make sure that holistic change, just as you said, Allison, is really supported, connected, and scalable to really lead for transformation and empowerment. We're really focused on agency. And to us, that means that everyone that we work with has the propensity to go and make local change happen. They have the skills, they have the tools, and they have the networks in order to be able to sustain that. So as we think about what we've done so far, we really have 4 things that we have been chasing in terms of the policy. So as we work with nonprofit organizations, we really work to help them, go to their embassy and go to their governments and share their story. So we have been very much telling the story of how can we fund connected, facilitated collaborations to build capacity. If we bring Adobe volunteers in, or if we bring Google volunteers in, or if we bring any volunteer in, skilled volunteer from the tech community, how can we help deploy their skills and information through these NGOs, build their capacity so that they can continue to build capacity? We also want to create networks for continued learning. In all of the policy work that we're seeing done so far to date, there's very much a gap of like somebody has to be the gatherer. So Allison, you guys doing this today is one step towards that. Being the gatherer, sharing the stories, getting things done. And we can't stop at access. Like we're very much focused on access plus training, or we're not going to get there. So that's kind of about us and what we're doing and how we're scaling. And thanks for giving us the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, you guys are kind of close to my heart because I've watched Lila when she started this, with the organization. She went just to take, I think it was PCs to Lebanon to her father's orphanage. And it was just amazing to see that take off. And then there was the connection with Intel. So thank you, Jody, so much. And if we have any questions, we'll probably see them in the chat and then we'll open it up for questions in a few minutes. Appreciate it.
All right.
I'd like to invite Mohan Raidu from Internet Society to go ahead and take the floor. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Shall I share from my side or you are sharing? Okay. Okay. That's me. You see, I'll be talking about the policy dialogue and technology for empowerment. And I am Mohan Raidu from Hyderabad, India. I'm the director of Informatics India, a software development company, a 20-year-old company. And we develop software using AI, blockchain, and various other latest technologies. I'm also associated with a few professional bodies, like I'm the president of Internet Society India Hyderabad chapter, wherein we have academic hubs, Internet Society academic hubs. We work with the faculty and students there. We focus on IPv6, Internet jurisdiction, universal acceptance, that is the multilingual Internet, and DNS security. So our focus is on such activities at ISOC. And I'm also the chair of ICT committee at FTCCI, Federation of Telangana Chambers of Commerce and Industry. It's a 110-year-old trade and industry body with 3,000 direct members and 30,000 indirect members. We collaborate with government and trade bodies, and we have various programs. And then I'm also the chair of e-governance working group at the CCICA, Cloud Computing Innovation Council of India. Okay, let's get into the topics now. Next, please. Yeah. I'll be touching on these topics like mission of policy dialogue and technology, problems being solved by the mission, key issues and the proposed solutions, problems faced in the work. A better policy can mitigate and bring solutions to the problems, and suggestions for measurable and actionable items. Thank you. Next. Next, please. Yeah. The mission of policy dialogue and technology. As a responsible digital pro, means as a leader in a few forums, I'm engaged in the programs and discussions among stakeholders from various sectors, including government, industry, academia, civil society, to promote development, deployment, and use of technology for the benefit of society. The goal is to address challenges and opportunities related to technology, such as digital divide, cybersecurity, privacy, intellectual property, innovation, and sustainability. As an MSc member of APR IGF, that is Asia Pacific Regional IGF, Internet Governance Forum, I work closely with the countries of Asia Pacific and Australia. Alison, actually, I had sent another version with C20 background. I think that's not taken.
I
Anyway.
apologize. I think that one of my colleagues is sharing the slide, so I thought they had that one, but sorry
Okay.
about that.
Okay. Okay.
Should we advance?
Yeah. Let's go to the next. Yeah, here problems being solved by the machine. We have identified few problems. First is lack of coordination. Stakeholders involved in the technology policy need coordination and communication among them. Here, from FTCCI, we have started a deep tech roundtable involving the high-level government officials, industry, and academia to understand the issues in the deep tech units in our state. Then we have institutioned this, and it's a sustained program. From this, we will be, recommending measures to encourage the deep tech units in our state. That's a forum from which we are, addressing this lack of coordination. Then limited understanding. Policymakers need to have a deep understanding of the new technologies. Towards this, we regularly organize technology workshops and seminars, and invite government and industry people and trade people. We propagate the knowledge. Then the other issue is the inclusivity. An inclusive and diverse platform for all stakeholders to participate in policy-making discussions is necessary. So that's where the inclusivity, unless inclusivity is there, the success will be difficult. And we have this short-term thinking. Technology policy has to consider the long-term implications of technology on society and the environment. So towards this also, from the FTCCI, we work with the government on a regular basis and ensure that the outlook is on a long-term basis. Development of technology policies should be inclusive, informed, coordinated, and sustainable. That's the thing. Thank you. Next. Key issues and the proposed solutions. Challenging issues are digital divide, cybersecurity, and privacy. So the solutions for them is digital divide, provide access to affordable high-speed internet in rural and low-income areas. From our Internet Society Hyderabad chapter, we are bridging this gap of digital divide by providing internet infrastructure with refurbished equipment of laptops and desktops and mobile phones collected from the industry. So we have institutionalized this activity at our Internet Society to collect the unused equipment and then add the internet infrastructure and give it to the schools where they don't have this facility. Then cyber security. We organize skill development trainings to promote stronger cybersecurity measures such as encryption, multi-factor authentication, and regular security updates. Other problem is the key privacy. Privacy is a growing concern in the age of big data. We have organized building trust in cross-border data flow. Workshop was organized by us at FTCCI in collaboration with ICC, International Chambers of Commerce. Yeah, that's how we have been addressing these issues. Next, please. Problems faced in the work. Digital divide is a main problem. lack of access to the digital infrastructure and technology in rural areas is hindering the government's efforts to implement policies related to the technology. Here, to bridge this gap, we have started community networks, and also Government of India started a framework called PM Vani. So we are working with the government to. It's a low-cost internet provision in the rural areas. So we have tied up with the government department, and then we are reaching it to the rural areas. The infrastructure, there are challenges related to the internet connectivity, bandwidth, and speed. These issues make it difficult to implement policies and related to the technology. So as I said, we are addressing this issue also. Then regulatory framework. India's technology regulatory framework is complex. A conducive regulatory environment for innovation is the need of the hour. Then we have education and skills. India faces a significant skills gap in the technology sector. Educational and training programs are needed that equip workers with the skills needed to succeed in a rapidly changing technology landscape. So we need the education of skills. And in fact, at FTCCI, we have started a skill development center, and we are providing training programs on various aspects, both in IT and non-IT subjects. An evidence-based policymaking in a collaborative and multidisciplinary approach will solve these problems. Thank you. Next. A better policy can manage and bring solutions to the problems. Simplifying complex issues, break down the technical jargon with clear explanations on how technology works and what its implications are. So we need to simplify the jargon. Adopting flexible policy frameworks, performance-based regulation that focuses on outcomes rather than the prescriptive rules. So this is another requirement of flexible frameworks. Next is engaging diverse stakeholders. So we have to engage a diverse range of stakeholders to help ensure that policy reflects a broad range of perspectives and interests and can help build consensus among policy solutions. So that's another requirement. We need to engage the diverse range of stakeholders. Thank you. Next. Some suggestions of measurable and actionable items. Foster collaboration between government, industry, and civil society. Measure the number of multi-stakeholder partnerships formed to address key issues related to technology. And second is conduct regular technology assessments. Measure the number of technology assessments conducted by governments or international organizations, as well as the number of policy recommendations implemented based on those assessments. So next is establish data governance frameworks. Develop standards and guidelines for data governance, promote data sharing and interoperability, and establish mechanisms for protecting individual privacy rights. Yeah. Then finally, promote responsible innovation. Establish ethical guidelines for development and deployment of emerging technologies. Promote transparency and accountability in decision-making processes. So that's it. Thank you. That's my.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I apologize. We had the wrong background on our slides. So we will open it up for questions and a few more speakers, but I wanted to see if we were able to get Alsar's mic working. If you'd like to go ahead, Alsar, are you ready?
I think so. It should work now.
Yeah, it's
All right.
working.
So hi, everyone. This is Gulzar Azad. And thank you to the hosts and to the organizers, to Amrita University and respected participants here to invite me, giving this opportunity to participate in this dialogue. This is, I think, a very exciting year for India to host the G20 summit. It's a key milestone in how the country has shaped the global dialogue. It's a key milestone in how our economics and how our social development are assuming the key importance that it deserves at the international conferences and at the international relationships. I'm very excited to be here. This is a short introduction. And then also a little bit of correction in my introduction. I don't work for Google India as such. I used to. I have been country head for access connectivity at Google India for some time. And then most recently, I have been an entrepreneur in residence at Google Research. And which essentially that means is that we are incubating a kind of a startup at Google Research. And we're solving for digital healthcare. I can talk more in detail about it, but I thought I'll use the 5 to 7 minutes that we have here to forward some thoughts on what we could be doing in the technology and transparency space as far as policy is concerned. So here is an opportunity that I would like to strike both with this audience, this panel, as well as potentially going forward with many of you in this forum and perhaps in other forums as well. And I feel that the biggest opportunity that we have in today, and as a context, I mean, when I say today, it's really important to realize that we are about to enter over the course of the decade and more into a very different age of technology, perhaps the age of intelligence. And we are all hearing about it, we are all reading about it. And we are beginning to see the impact in our common lives, in our lives around us as well. But we perhaps do not fully envision, because it's not objectively clear, what the implications are. And we are moving away from the age of information much more faster than we thought. I mean, we just in the human landscape, in the human civilization zone, we just had entered the age of information, and now we're very soon transforming into and transferring into the age of intelligence because of the advent of technology in various spheres, especially to do with what most of us are hearing now in artificial intelligence. And it has been we have been at this stage of development for about more than 50 to 60 years. Some of it known to us, some of it not so much known to us. And the effects are now being seen. So as that's happening, what should it mean for general policy? What should it mean for the human society? There is an opportunity here to shape that future. And that opportunity lies in understanding the aggregation of demand in terms of data that exists for every member of the population. And it is aggregated, it is surveyed, it is collected by either governments or large organizations like tech organizations, or large, fundamental organizations like the ones that provide us electricity, or the one that provides us healthcare, and so on forth. And that information, that data today, lies in access and aggregation for only a few select organizations and the government. Of course, the government, uses it to the best of our interests, and for making effective hopefully effective decisions as they go forward and more productive decisions. But at the same time, we have not made the effort to return this data back to where it belongs, which is every individual, every family, every aggregation of population, every community. And so then it's not just about returning data, but it's also about understanding the demand from that community and understanding the demand from each family and each unit of that population, which, you know, is in societies like ours, which is very diverse and also uneven in terms of literacy, in terms of access to technology, access to benefits, access to wealth. How would such a transaction be done, and how would this data be returned, and how would this data be collected is something that we should think very deeply about. And herein perhaps lies some example of the project that I did most recently, working in healthcare. We did this population scale health mapping across one entire state, and mapped almost like 1 in every 4 adults. Now this was done by the state, not by my organization, but we enabled technology for them to do it. And as the state was doing it, we realized one very important thing. While the state now has all the data and the government has all the data necessary to make effective decisions, but it has not yet returned that data to every individual. And there's no policy to do that. And when you return this data to the individual, you need to do it in a way which is intelligible, which is understandable, which is actionable. So how do you return actionable data back to citizens is one aspect of policy that we have to deeply consider. And that data today lies with the government and with the corporates and with various organizations in various forms and manner. It has been collected by us when we are interacting online. It has been collected when we're paying our bills. It's been collected when community workers, for example, are working with us for health, or care providers, hospitals, etc., are providing us services. Is there in various forms and manner, and it's perhaps very disorganized, it's very disoriented, it's very siloed, it's very fragmented. And I think policy is doing nothing to help today, at least, to help get it back. While we are talking about all, like, how should we bridge the digital divide, we're talking about how do we collaborate within the government functions, within the public sector to private sector functions, and all that is absolutely important. But what we haven't perhaps done is thought about the beneficiary as much as we should, putting the beneficiary at the center of this, and not just the beneficiary, not just the member of the population, not just the citizen, but also the human assistance that is provided to the citizens, because that human assistance is a necessary linkage between collecting, organizing, and making that data actionable, whether it's health or whether it's education or whether it's climate or whether it's environment or agriculture for that matter. I think we have to build that, as I was pointing out, it's solving for trust. How do we solve for trust? We can't solve for trust without returning this data back. And that is very, very important for what's about to happen in the next 10 years or so. And collectively, the G20 or the world at large needs to think, how do we do that? How do we make the data the currency of every human being, not just the currency of the corporates and of the government for effective decision making, but for effective decision making and empowerment of every human being? I think that's the only thought, and it's much more simpler. It's perhaps simple it's much more easier said than done, obviously, and it's much more simpler in terms of understanding that yes, we have to do that, but how to do that is perhaps a discussion for another forum. I think that
we actually have a forum on trust tomorrow morning, and so we'll be talking a little bit about trust, and we had one on AI and data earlier in the week. And I think all of these points that you're bringing up are very key to be able to, see how do you collaborate, as you mentioned, with private, government, et cetera, but also help society. So yeah, thank you so much, Asad.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to have one more speaker, and then we will go ahead and do some Q&A briefly. But I wanted to introduce, hello, Lindy Wafula from Village Ventures, and she's doing some fantastic work in Kenya. So we wanted to hear a little bit about what you're doing, and then also how what policy changes you think need to happen. So welcome, Lindy. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. I am really grateful to be able to join you in this wonderful meeting. I should start by saying Happy International Women's Day. It's still in that week, in that month that we are celebrating women all over the world. And for me, I look at it with a great voice from the villages of Kenya and coming to this international platform to share with you about what we are doing and inform more concern in technology as we have put it forward. Thank you again. My name is Lindy Wafula. I am the founder and Chief Executive Officer of Village Ventures International. And we started as Village Ventures Kenya, an organization, social enterprise established in Kenya with a very clear vision to see how we can be able to empower women, youth, and people with disabilities with different skills and resources for enterprise development. One and our foremost vision has been planted on the platform of ideas, innovation, investment, and impact. That is why, even as we come as an enterprise development, a social enterprise development, we focus mainly on seeing how we can empower women from the grassroots of Kenya to the upper level of the global international market or international platform to see how women can be able to perform and use their talents to making sure that we can alleviate poverty, and we can also make sure that we can perform or let me say, look at the social development goals that have been set up by the United Nations and making sure that we can be able to achieve these goals to alleviate poverty. As we are talking today about technology, allow me to come to you with the mind of the women at the grassroots of Kenya. We are on this particular week of International Women's Day and International Day of Women in 2023, looking at equality and equity, which are still a couple of things that we are looking onto. Are these terms the same? No, they are not. And that is what we've got to look at. When we come in technology, in the few minutes that I have to share with you, let us go back to 2019, where the whole world has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. It did not choose any country, it came to all of us. And it is with that the effects of the COVID pandemic, the COVID-19, that I am coming to you to share with you how this has affected us from the grassroots into the international level, especially in technology arena. One of the things that we look at is COVID was affected businesses from the grassroots, affected education, affected health, and every other platform of social good. And because of that, we can see that it also gave, we always say, where there is pain, there is power. With the pain of COVID that came with us and having affected all the sectors of our lives, there was room for technology to thrive. And technology came along with us seeing how we could use mobile phones, how we could use internet, how we could use e-banking, and how we could even use our phones and our laptops to be remote employees of different companies. We could work from home. That is what I'm looking up to. But then, even with this coming today, 4 years later, almost going 5 years later, what has been the impact? We have really been affected to see that the gender gap of equity and equality has been highly affected in such a way that those who are at the grassroots of villages in Kenya, being that they do not have education, they do not have prime capital to do their business. They may have very brilliant ideas to engage in business or even have innovation, but do they have the capital to be on the platform of the internet today or of technology today for them to share that ideology or that innovation on the platform so that they can earn an income out of it? Today, we can see that the world has allowed every other country and every other society to be able to engage online, where you can even fundraise for projects that are happening in the villages. However, the crowdfunding that we are going through right now on the internet, it's very selective. It is not reaching the women at the grassroots. It is only at the international level. The women still do not know how to use internet. The women still do not know how to operate a mobile phone. The women in the villages of Kenya still do not know how they can be able to operate a smartphone. They cannot even differentiate what is a smartphone and an ordinary phone. That is why we are coming to you on this particular platform today to say, kindly, let us reason together and see how do we help women at the grassroots to be able to flourish in this era of technology and digitalization. I'm looking at it at the moment, and I'm saying that if we look at somebody has just spoken to us, one of my colleagues here, and spoke about cybersecurity and online harassment, bullying, and stalking that has been affecting women again. Those are some of the challenges that we have seen, even in our own network, where we try to tell the women in their self-help groups as they come together, and we give them an online platform where they can sell their handcrafts or sell their ideas. Apart from their ideas being stolen from them and they are seen in other places having been developed into products, they are also stalked or undergo, I will say, cyberbullying in such a way that they are shown that a computer or a mobile phone is just not any ordinary equipment or gadget that they can have in their hands. Probably back home in Africa, it is like a piece of land or a motor vehicle that is known to be owned by the man in the home or the father of the household. So many of the women, despite the fact that do not have mobile phones and do not have the laptops to work with or the computers, neither do they have the knowledge of how to work. We see that they are stalked and they are abused in different ways, that they fear even to come online and be business initiators or be able to show that they want to do some business. As we think about closing the gap, the gender gap, the equality and equity gap between men and women using in technology and using digital services, let us think of it, just how much it helps right now to get ideas on the internet. Let us think of it for sure, of how it helps to get jobs right now through the internet. How much we are able to send on the internet because we care about what is happening day in, day out, and making sure that we can fight poverty from the grassroots. It is not possible unless we engage this team that has been left aside, and that is the team of women. Unless we engage this team that is still illiterate and cannot be able to perform or read what is written in the mobile phones. A challenge will be, can we have apps, for instance, social and digital apps that are in Swahili, a local language that is understood by the women, that is understood by those who are at the lower level of society, that is understood by that woman who is selling vegetables under the hot sun in the busy villages of Nairobi. Let us think about it. Are we going to have smartphones that have been devised or have been built with these local languages that the women understand? They don't understand English. They do not understand Swedish. They do not understand French. They do not at all. Let us think on those lines, how we can help them. I look at it again as I conclude that we have got to look at how we are going to embrace and thinking about the countries in the G20, in the European Union, and even those engaging with the World Bank. How can we finance women who are engaging in technology and digitalization? Can we fund them to be trainers such that we are putting them in the universities or technical colleges, sponsored fully, so that they can get these lessons and they can go to the ground and teach them to those who are in the villages? Knowledge is power. Unless we give it to the women, then we will not be able to overcome what they are going through. Let us think about it also on how we can put policies on the gender lens, how we can help the women and those who own women farms. Let us give them procurement policies. Let us give them the tenders that they can be able to supply and offer the gadgets that are needed in schools, in the hospitals, and other government centers. As we continue also, we need to think of how we build basic skills from the schools, from the grassroots. Let us engage the children, the girls, by making sure that we can give them these opportunities or offer them this that they need to be able to start learning as early as possible, just like our mothers will teach us, just like our mothers will teach us on how to cook. Let us now start teaching our girls and our daughters how to operate a computer. Let us teach them how to operate a smartphone. In Europe, in America, all the children are being given smartphones where they start playing and having video games. Yet in Africa, we still do not have that. We've got to engage them from that early age to see how they can go. Also, as we conclude or as we look at it, e-banking now is a prime service. How do we give not only micro loans, but macro loans? Let us give those macro loans as funding to women who have ideas and innovation in technology and making sure that we can be able to grow with them. If we give the scholarships, if we give the macro loans and micro loans, if we deal and give them opportunities, maybe even have cyber cafes as libraries in communities. That is what Village Ventures would want to do. As a social enterprise, given funding, we will not only buy books, but we will buy computers and smartphones, put them in the communities where our women, our mothers, our daughters, those with disabilities, the old, can be able to access and use it for their well-being. It is time that the world has changed. This is not the time that we will have our mothers with social or with sewing machines, just beading and beading and beading handcrafts. This is the time that we have got to give our mothers and our daughters computers in their hands and making sure that they can engage with the world, have online businesses, sell their products online, and making an income to take care of themselves. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I wish you all the best. I welcome you to engage with Village Ventures International in Kenya. Let us make a difference. Let us empower the women. Let us change this world. Thank you very much. God bless you. I love you all.
Thank you so much, Lindy. I really love that you brought all these points that are so important to some of us in different places around the world, so that we can all recognize how important it is for the women and the girls and our mothers and everyone to have access to technology for economic well-being. I really appreciate how you spoke from your heart as well. So I'd like to ask Mr. Dipendra Manocha from Saksham to speak next. If you're here and ready to go, here you are.
Hi, everybody. So our mission, our work as the Director Developing Countries Program of DAISY Consortium and as the Honorary Founder Trustee of Saksham has been to empower persons with print disabilities to be able to read and write themselves independently. I'll start with showing a photograph here as slide 1. This is a significant photograph in many ways. What we see here is an inclusive classroom with a girl with blindness sitting in that classroom of the mainstream school. She is sitting there with a piece of equipment, a laptop here, but that might as well be a tablet with a hardware keyboard or a smartphone with a hardware keyboard. What it is doing is that it is allowing the girl with total blindness to be able to read and write in the script that the rest of the world can read and write in. This is in addition to the Braille reading writing skills that persons with blindness have been having for past almost 200 years. But this capability of being able to read and write in the script that the rest of the world understands is a complete game changer, because this fact has opened up many opportunities, both in terms of education opportunities or livelihood opportunities or employment opportunities. It has, as you can see, that the mainstream school teacher who's not literate in Braille is able to check what this girl is actually writing on the equipment, like she is able to do for the other persons in the classroom. So the next slide is talking about the impact of this technology, but I'll just spoke about it, so I'll move to the next part. What we have been able to build in India is an example that is shown here, that traditionally persons with blindness did not have access to reading materials that they could read themselves. But now we have an online library example here, where so many smaller organizations, small and big organizations, whether they're not-for-profit organizations or government organizations, they are able to bring in the materials that had been converted into an accessible format on a single platform. So the Sugamya Pustakalaya mentioned there is a common repository for the whole country where accessible materials are getting together. And this common repository is connected to the devices of users. So users would have, on the other end, devices like a refreshable Braille display or a smartphone or a computer or a DAISY player. And these devices are directly connected to the central repository of books. So the impact of that, if you may just see that a country like India with 22 languages, with such huge diversity in terms of economic, social, geographical diversity, rural and urban divide, and there's so many diversities here in India. No matter where they are, they get access to materials that they can read themselves. Let's go to next slide. The devices unfortunately, on their own are not the full solution. So devices that we are talking about are computers or smartphones with screen reading softwares, which means that I can actually get an audio output or a braille output from my computer or smartphone. So whatever is there on the screen is either spoken out or rendered to me in braille. And I can then read whether it's a WhatsApp message that I receive or an email or a digital book that I open or the website that I open, I can actually access it because the computer or the smartphone actually either speaks out to me, reads it out to me in a synthesized voice, or it renders that same thing to me in braille. Now, having this device in hand is not sufficient because after all, we use this device to access materials such as being displayed on a website, whether it is a banking site or a the shopping site, or filling up any forms for taking government facilities, or uh, or making railway bookings, or any kind of facilities, digital facilities that are there, are coming to us in form of websites. Similarly, there are documents, digital documents out there in form of online libraries, or even on government websites, or collection of legal documents, and all these public documents, public policy documents are out there on the website, which we can sort of access. And also there are the applications right on our devices that has user interface. So we use these devices to access all that. So on their own, a computer with screen reading software is nothing, because it's a window to all that information out there in the form of website, etc. Now, if the websites and these apps are not made compatible with assistive technology, then in spite of having all the best of the technology on my hand, I will still remain marginalized and deprived of all the information access, and will not be able to become part of the productive society, productive workforce of the society. And of course, we want persons with disabilities not sitting idle at home, being cared for by their family members, but we want persons with disabilities to be part of the productive workforce of the society. So that is what is economically sustainable. We can't have larger population like senior citizens or persons with disabilities being cared for, but rather we would have persons with disabilities and senior citizens also contributing to the growth story of any country. And to make sure that all that happens, we need all these information sources to be made compatible with the assistive technology that we are talking about in the digital space. Next slide. So we do need policies, one for making these assistive technologies available at an affordable cost, because unfortunately, disability and poverty has got a very, very deep connection. So disability causes poverty. A person with disability would become harder and harder for a person with disability to be able to earn themselves in the current environment. So it leads to their poverty, and vice versa. So people in the economically weaker section of the family are more sustainable, more, no, I shouldn't say sustainable, but more susceptible to becoming disabled. And I've seen so many use cases where persons with blindness, low vision shouldn't have been blind at first place, because they did not get access to appropriate health services. They could not afford appropriate health services in time. And that is why they became persons with disabilities. And that is why I say There is a big, deep connectivity between poverty and disability. And therefore, we need to sort of make sure that these assistive technologies to access digital information need to be provided at an affordable cost and to be made compatible with local languages. So the first policy intervention that I'm recommending here for the group to consider is to have a very clear policy on how this assistive technology gets funded, because the users themselves are not in the position to pay for it. So then do we just leave them to their own plight, or as a society we come forward, create a policy and make sure that the required assistive technology is in the hands of people so that they can become part of the productive society, as I say. So that's one policy intervention which is definitely required. We have an example of that in India called something called EDIP scheme, but its scope obviously is small as of now in comparison to the requirement. Second clear policy part is that we have certain frameworks in place. The first one is the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that ensures that access to information communication technology, all that is mandatory for any society. Now, when we adopt, when a country, a lot of our countries have actually ratified this convention, and but unfortunately, the implementation of the same in our national laws and national policies and on the ground is actually far from ideal right now. So there's a lot that needs to be done to implement the convention that our countries have actually ratified. Similarly, there is this Marrakesh Treaty, which has come into force, has been ratified by a country like India, and many countries of the G20 would have ratified the Marrakesh Treaty that ensures that that there is an exception in the copyright law to convert an inaccessible piece of digital information into accessible format without waiting for permissions of the copyright owners. And if it is done in a not-for-profit method, then this exception rule applies. And anything that is converted into accessible format can then be exchanged across international borders to avoid duplication. So this is why the Marrakesh Treaty had to come in, an international treaty had to come into force, allowing such exceptions. Countries need to really ratify it if they have not ratified it. We need to harmonize our copyright laws with the Marrakesh Treaty provisions. And then comes the part of implementation. So when we need to implement this policy of ICT accessibility, we need to define the word accessibility. And how do we define that? We do that by international standards. There are international standards up there. Examples have been quoted in this slide, like Web Content Accessibility Guidelines or the EPUB Accessibility Guidelines, or if it is a PDF file, you need to have adhere to PDF UA guidelines. So there are several guidelines and standards that are there. Now, either within our own country, we simply say that, okay, we will implement the international standard web content accessibility guidelines in our country, or we harmonize our own standards, national standards, to these international standards. An example of that harmonization is what we did in India. The Bureau of Indian Standards has recently notified something called IS 17802 standards, which clearly defines what do we mean by accessibility. And then the next step of implementation comes through procurement policy. So we need to have a procurement policy that so I'm moving to the last slide here, procurement policy, which clearly says that for example, if I have to hire a service to create a website for my organization or for my entity, then whenever I'm getting a quotation or whenever I'm defining the specifications of what kind of service should be provided to me by the service provider, one of the clause, an essential clause has to be that that website must comply to the accessibility guidelines. And unless these accessibility guidelines become part of the procurement policy at the time of creating the products and services or buying these services, and if we do not have the accessibility built in at this stage, it's, you know, it becomes kind of a laughable process that we end up doing, that we create a new website without accessibility thing, and then we suddenly say, oh, now let us make it accessible. So we build something new and then break it and then try to make it accessible. It's so illogical. So that is why these accessibility guidelines have to be part of a procurement process, especially when it comes to the information infrastructure. And that is what will allow the person sitting in that classroom that I showed in our first photograph to be independent and to be part of the mainstream society and the real inclusion in the information society of today, and the real opportunity of being productive in today's information age would actually become a reality for us. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Dependent Manocha. That was fantastic. That is such an amazing, you gave us so many things really to think about, from policy, but also the experience and how technology and accessibility keeps everybody from an inclusion perspective able to really give their gifts back to society. So thank you very, very much. And I think we can take a lot of those recommendations forward in our policy document for the C20. So we may be following up with you on that.
Thank you.
Okay. I really appreciate that. I'd like to now introduce Chris Warman, and he is here from Connect Humanity, and also I think you can definitely introduce yourself, but on behalf with TechSoup as well, so that's great. So Chris, please go ahead and take the floor. Your slides are here.
Sure thing. I'm actually not going to use the slides. I think it'll be perhaps a little easier for everybody. So hello, everyone. Thanks. It's been a fascinating conversation. I'm Chris Warman. I'm the co-founder of Connect Humanity, a fund for digital equity. We help communities access the knowledge and resources they need to get online on their terms. We're pretty young, about 18 months into our full operations, but happy with our models. With a lot of hard work, some great partners and civil society supporters, we've provided more than 50 grants, around $2 million in grants total, and $4.6 million in loans that have leveraged an additional $50 million into new networks in 7 underserved communities, altogether putting more than 100,000 people on a path to having high-speed, affordable internet access, devices, and access to training. The little link in the chat there. This top link about some of our research and publications will take you to part of what led to us being here today. A recent survey we conducted with TechSoup, Civicus, Forus, Wings, and other civil society organizations around the world. The survey was in 25 languages. It reached more than 7,500 NGOs and 134 countries, and examined the barriers that civil society and their communities face to achieving digital equity. This group altogether, the 7,500 NGOs that took the survey, collectively serve 190 million people. They had the following to say. 95% of them said that the internet is critical for their work. 80% said that the lack of internet had disrupted their services. 50% said that they and their communities are not safe online. Only 12% of their communities are fully online, meaning that about 88% of them are unable to access services. Of those 12% who are online, the majority of those people do not have, they access the internet through their mobile phones, which I think many of us can agree is far from ideal, especially when considering issues like the accessibility issues our colleague just spoke to. In case there's any doubt, which probably isn't the case here, this issue is certainly not, this issue is a problem in the G20 as well, with more than 40 million American families, overwhelmingly tribal, Black, and Latino families offline. I encourage you to dig into the report. I'm going to warn you, though, there's nothing shocking in this report to those of you who focus on this issue. But we didn't do this to be shocked. We did this survey to begin building a broad grassroots community of organizations who are more able to speak and advocate for digital equity, a community that we hope can be brought behind and into concert with many of the frontline organizations here. Because we could all use a few friends, or a lot of friends, no? What is perhaps shocking is how little attention this issue gets. Conversations about digitalization almost exclusively focus on the benefits of digitalization while ignoring the fact that we have nearly half of the world offline and many more underconnected, present company excluded, but I believe many of you would agree with me from walking the halls of civil society and bilateral conversations that we tend to focus on what happens after people get connected, and it is a minority of us who still talk about the fact that many aren't. Long story short, as you all know, we are failing our most vulnerable communities. We are moving nowhere near fast enough on our SDG 9C commitments, much less living up to ensuring access to information and the internet. So some recommendations then for governments. First, I would recommend establishing transparency mechanisms through open telecom data policies, regulations to map the availability of the internet infrastructure to identify areas that need more investment, where backhaul can be found, and provide a foundation for public engagement on access issues. Two, governments should consider investing more and differently to advance digital equity. Market-based approaches have failed too many people. There are plenty of models that are successfully connecting the unconnected. Invest in unbiased policy advice, support specialized intermediaries that can get communities investment ready, fully deploy universal service and access funds, and adopt models like those used for green banks, which provide unsecured loans to internet service providers who are willing and able to end the digital divide. Third and last, ensure the laws encourage community connectivity providers such as community or municipal networks to operate. Ensure that they are eligible for universal service access funds, have access to spectrum, and can benefit from accelerated licensing and authorization processes. There are many more. Who doesn't dig a good dig once policy? We should insist on open standards and green infrastructure considerations in any publicly financed project. We should ensure that we have mechanisms to pull licenses from those who take public money and then fail to deliver. Those are just a few, and I'm sure nothing new to any of you, which is frustrating in a way, since we have all known how to connect everyone on the planet for years, but have allowed ourselves not to do so. And in such, the internet that was supposed to be such an equalizer becomes another wedge between the haves and have-nots. I hope going forward, we can get clear on our options and financial mechanisms, and I sincerely hope through the work that we've done with this particular bit of research and fora like these, that we can empower and center civil society in this work as the community who will always put dignity and the last mile first, who will, as with all other rights-based fights, win this fight for our collective digital rights. Thanks.
You packed a ton of information in a very short amount of time, but
I've had a lot of
I'm
coffee
really
today.
excited. Good for you. I need some, but I'm really excited about your report, and thank you so much, because I think what you just mentioned is so key for the vulnerable societies, and you called us out on all of the communities that we've been failing for a long time, and there's really no reason for this at all in this day and age, and it's just shocking that we're still here. So thank you very much for your passionate contributions. I really appreciate that. So
My pleasure.
Next up, we have Dr. Vinaya Ariante from Sarvodaya, and I think you were going to introduce one of your colleagues to speak. Maitri, oh, you're already here. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry, Dr. Minya had to connect to another meeting, so I'm representing on behalf of him. Yeah, I'm Maitri Malategoda, General Manager of Sarode Fusion in Sri Lanka. So next slide, please. Fusion is the ICT for development arm of Sarode movement, which is the oldest NGO in Sri Lanka. Our mission is the empowerment of communities in the country, and the operational model is a not-for-profit social enterprise. Next slide, please. So let me start with the current context in the country. So as you see, digital literacy rate in the country in 2021 is 50%, and social media usage in 2022 is 38.1%, and internet usage in the country in 2022 it's 52.6%, and access to devices by school students in 2020 it was 34%. But I couldn't find recent research in this. I hope that it must have increased a bit after COVID, actually. So next one, please. So this is our journey from 1997 to 2020, from telecenter to Internet of Things. Sarodi is a pioneer for first telecenter. So, and how we evolved to from telecenter to virtual academy. So next, please. This is the changing digital landscape. So the problem statement is communities are not educated or skillful to apply information technology to meet their needs despite the presence of technology. So our strategies are we provide access to communities through telecenters, introducing tech tools and devices, and we build capacity of children and youth by providing ICT education and ICT skills development, and we provide access to information and benefits by raising awareness among communities. So how we do that is we design and deliver programs to the communities by providing digital access, digital literacy, and digital benefits. So the output is in digital access, telecenter network consisting 100 plus grassroots educators we have, and in digital literacy, over 3,500 students per annum gain access to IT education, and in digital benefits, 40,000 direct outreach and 2.5 million online outreach through awareness annually. So the sustainable impact is through a continuous process of learning, engagement, and partnership with government, corporates, industry, and the grassroots educator network. We identify and fill gaps in the country by bringing social and economic opportunities to the communities as an ICT enabler. Next, please. So let me present a few programs which we do. We initiated a program called Fusion Education in 2009. The objective of this program is to provide quality and recognize IT education to disadvantaged children in the country, and sustainable of the telecenter network, the 100 plus grassroots educators. Next, please. So how they recognize students. So we have introduced 10 plus national and international recognized IT education courses, and we affiliated and collaborate with educational bodies, Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission, Microsoft Imagine Academy, Cisco Networking Academy, NIBM, the Open University of Sri Lanka, and these courses made to suit industry needs, and we are charging a nominal fee, which is 50% cheaper than the market rate. And we identify students who can't afford that. Then we provide them scholarship by partnering with donor partners and corporate partners. And up to now, 40,000 plus students passed out through these programs. Next, please. So this is a project that we have initiated in 2016. Why we introduced this program called IT Yahamaga, that means IT for right reason. So why we introduced this program is at that time, most of the people started to talk about the negative side of using internet and social media, and school students, they were started to face problems by misusing these platforms. So then we wanted to educate them about a positive use of online. So then at the same time, so we are encouraged them to use them ethically, effectively, and safely as well. So next, please. So then Facebook came on board in 2018, and at the same time, Ministry of Education and ICTA agency came on board. We collaborate with them to expand this program island-wide to more segments. So we started with school students starting from 14, then we expanded to other segments like teachers, school principals, parents, entrepreneurs, girls and women, and disabled children and youth as well. So in 2020, Facebook introduced their curricular content called We Think Digital, and IT Yahamaga content combined with We Think Digital content to create responsible digital citizens in the country. Next, please. So up to now, from 2016 to 2022, we educate and aware 140,000 beneficiaries through this program. Next, please. This is the program called Be Internet Awesome. The program comes under IT Yahamaga same program, and the target audience for this is 17 to 14. We were collaborated with Google to fund this program, and the objective of introducing this program is helping kids starting from 7 to 14 to be safe and confident explorers in the online world. So next, please. There are some, we are very strong in doing online campaigns. So we had an attack in 2019 after Easter. So after Easter attack, we did an online campaign called Think First. The objective of this campaign is to attempt to tackle the damage while spreading communal harmony by promoting compassion and preventing the spread of disinformation. So next, please. And these are a few posts of the campaign. We run this campaign through social media. Next, please. The campaign we did within 3 months' time, and total reach of the campaign is 700,000 plus, and the total engagement for the campaign is 213 plus. Yeah, next, please. So this is another campaign that we have done successfully at the COVID outbreak. The objective of this campaign to create a more positive and engaged digitalized community of Sri Lankans competent in using digital technologies to carry out their daily tasks. So at that time, most of the people were having negative vibes, so we wanted to convert them to positive vibes. So we initiated this campaign, online campaign, to keep them positive at that time, and we wanted them to share their positive stories when they stuck at home at the lockdown period, and it helped other people to replicate those positive stories when they are at home. So the campaign, this was a campaign and competition as well. So the reach of the campaign is 432,000, and the page likes is 10,000 plus. And we got entries from communities as photos. I mean, they were sharing their positive stories in pictures and videos and paintings, etc. So yeah, that's about the campaign. Next slide, please. So these are a few pictures of the competition that the kids and the adults, they were participating very positively for the campaign and the competition, and we had a vote ceremony after that. So yeah. Next, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Question,
great, thank you. I think we can put some questions in the chat and then maybe we can keep moving. I think next we have Francisco Rota from Reboot Canada, and we'd like to give you the floor. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's absolutely humbling and a tremendous privilege to be a part of this conversation. It happened sort of spontaneously I guess it was last week when I first spoke with Gilad. Thank you very much for the introduction to this fantastic initiative, Gilad. It's exactly as you described it. Although, you know, it's just really impressive, frankly, to see how much quality thought is being put into these critical issues, you know, that have a tremendous impact. I guess a little bit about Reboot Canada and why we're here. If you don't know and if you haven't seen the website, I'm based in Toronto. I'm here in Toronto right now at our offices with our fantastic lighting. And Reboot Canada undertakes projects that try and close the gap in terms of the digital divide and tries to ensure that there is equitable access to technology. And we do that. We think about it in three terms, really this notion of a tripod. And it's not my idea, but it works really well. And this idea that you need the internet, absolutely, you need the infrastructure. You also, though, need a device to access that internet. And of course, you also need the skill set to be able to use the device. And so those three items combined are the areas of our practice. And so we do that with three different programs here across Canada, but based in Toronto. And we have an office in Peterborough as well, if you're familiar. But our programs are pretty simple, and I don't have a slide deck or anything, but they're pretty simple. The first one's called Restart, and it's basically it's subsidized access to a laptop or a desktop. And so this month, for example, I just talked to Lars in Peterborough. We're probably going to do about 85 computers this month. Generally speaking, going forward, we'll try and hit about 1,000 families a year with a device. And so the device, and this is one thing that I'm not sure is that well appreciated. A lot of people think about technology as technology. You either have technology or you don't. The light either works or it doesn't. And that's not really the case. The different, you know, broadband has different speeds, and there are different things that you can do with it depending on that speed. And laptops are the same. There are lots of, you know, devices that work, that will turn on, but they won't necessarily be useful, or they may not necessarily be supported 6 months from now. And so what we try to do is make sure that we've got a spec, standardized spec that we can provide to people that we're confident will be supportable 12 months from now. And we're confident will go into the field and be used by families and maybe be moved around quite a bit. And it'll be, you know, it'll work, or maybe it'll go up north to a remote community where there won't be access to a Best Buy for repair. So we're concerned about the quality of devices that, you know, we're deploying. And it's something that we keep in mind. It's not just a question of going out and buying a bunch of things and backing up the truck and dropping it off. You have to be concerned about the aftercare, if you will, of that device and the sort of fate and life cycle of it. So devices, super important. And we basically, where we are right now, and I think I can do this, but where we are right now is in a situation, that's actually my office. So if we go this way, this is where we build computers. This, if you can sort of see, there's where people walk in, and that's, let me see if we've got, yeah, right there. That's kind of our bench. That's our inventory there. And we basically refurbish computers. Historically, what we've done is accepted donations of computers and fixed them up and then put them out there. We have developed a really strong relationship with private organizations in the electronic recycling industry, and we've managed to develop sort of predictable cash flows around around donations of devices. And so we're a registered charity here in Canada, so we have the privilege of being able to, or the right to, issue tax receipts for donations. And so we can receive all kinds of electronics. We can assess a fair market value, typically using some online marketplace, and then we can issue a tax receipt. And so we draw a lot of donations that way. We can't deploy everything that people donate to us, obviously. So what we do is we monetize what we can't actually deploy in our programs, and then we use that capital to go out and purchase the right devices. And when I say devices, they are all used. We go to the used markets and the refurbished markets to source those devices. We bring them in, and then we use our skill set and our ability to refurbish them to bring them up to spec. And there's really, I mean, we're pretty well committed to the three big brands. We're pretty well committed to devices that come from enterprise environments. And those are the things that we end up, usually they're within 8 years or 10 years old. And that's what we end up using. And going back to this notion of a quality product and making sure that that's resilient, I'm going to try and cover this light. That's what our principal focus is. So that's the devices part. On the internet side of things, we do something called Community Relay. And Community Relay is really something that we started with Indigenous Services Canada, which is part of the federal government, obviously. And they were the initial project funders around some of the costs associated with that. And what it is really reaching out to Indigenous communities and remote Indigenous communities. And partnering with the economic development groups in those communities and finding some youth who is interested in learning something about Wi-Fi and providing them, in partnership with Cisco, providing them with a device, and then arranging for the installation, the permanent installation of that device in a public space, either the council office or maybe an arena or some, a public space where it can be accessed. And so I'm not going to lie, it's slow going. We're not like in a million places. We're in 5 places right now. But we're on the East Coast, we're on the West Coast, we're in Northern Saskatchewan, and we're in Northern Ontario. And so that's, we continue to crank on that, and we continue to invest in that process. And what we do is leverage Teams, not Zoom and not Google, but we use Teams, Microsoft Teams, in partnership with them to provide the remote training capacity. And so that's, we're doing Teams chats all week long with 18-year-old in Indigenous communities that are kind of helping us out with getting the Wi-Fi, the MR74 or whatever installed and available. And of course, going back to the idea of community driving, what's really important, an important part of the module is that young person, it has to engage with his community or her community in terms of, what sort of restrictions do they want around that Wi-Fi. It's really important. And so on the East Coast, for example, they shut it down at 8 p.m. and it comes back up at 8. It's not available.
Interesting.
In Big Digong in Northern Ontario, it's on all the time at the youth center there. So so that's a really important part of that conversation. And of course, the technology is, the one thing I want to say is the technology is super important, but what's more important in many ways is the experience of this young person effectively being a project manager, in a community and getting exposed to that opportunity where they wouldn't normally, right? Or they would have to go to Thunder Bay. They'd have to go to an urban center in order to be exposed to similar opportunities. So I'm kind of that's the second tripod. There's internet access, and that's how we're focused on it. I mean, the biggest barrier there, and from a policy standpoint, at least in Canada, is the cost of internet and the way the way that capacity is allocated to a small number of companies is problematic, right?
Going back to Chris's point, about making it available and accessible and affordable. Yeah,
absolutely. And so that and there's a very big difference in terms of servicing a city like Toronto and servicing anywhere up north.
The tundra.
or not even that far. So there's that. And then I touched on the community really also touches on the skills training and development piece, but the skills training and development piece is remote, but it is also local as well. So we have a store here in Toronto that I kind of spun you around. And we have a location in Peterborough, Ontario. It's about an hour and a half east. And we're exploring other locations actually as we speak. But the idea is that it's a space where people can come, and we proactively recruit from marginalized youth and from groups of young people who normally may not get exposed to an opportunity to work in IT, for example. And so the training isn't, using Word document or Excel or writing an email. That's not so much the training. The training is really, it's replacing a hard drive. It's, doing a wipe. It's upgrading the RAM. It's loading drivers. It's making sure that a computer is staged and ready to go, that sort of thing.
That's great.
As well as all the softer skills and so forth. So that's the tripod, the three-pronged approach that we use. From a policy standpoint, I was telling Gilad, I'm a baby. I have no idea around policy so much, and I'm not, in that world. What we do is we're concerned about getting things out there that are effective and helping folks that are vulnerable and don't have a way to access it otherwise.
Thank you so much, Francisco. We really appreciate it. And thanks for the tour of your space. And we can see you guys are on the ground really doing the work. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I wanted to hand this off. We have a couple more speakers, and we're going to have to accelerate on time because we have 3 speakers. And so I wanted, Geeta, you're here, and I just want to hand it off to you. So please take the stage.
Thank you, Alison, and hello, everyone. I'll try to be brave, and I will outline my presentation to 3 aspects. So I'm going to share to you a little bit about what we do at Bully Indonesia, and then a little bit of a background about the online harassment in Indonesia, and then lastly, I think the recommendations that come from our end. So Bully Indonesia, it's a tech charity. We are focusing on preventing and responding, supporting survivors of online harassment using technological advancement. In this case, we built our own Bullied app. It's on web-based application. And we provide online psychological and legal support for the victims of online harassment. It also have an access for the survivors to be able to report. So we do also training as well as a public awareness. So what we see that obviously the internet has transformed the way we live, we work, we communicate with each other. It has given us unprecedented access to information and has made it easier than ever to connect with the people worldwide. However, the internet is not always safe, particularly for women and girls. Since the COVID-19 hits the country, women and girls have faced online harassment, cyberbullying, and other forms of online violence in every day. In Indonesia alone, we are quite a huge numbers of internet users. We have 279 million population and 171 million internet users. So we are quite literate in terms of using the internet. However, there are 300% increased within a few months at the beginning of a lockdown a few years ago in terms of the numbers of online abuse in the country. And 49% of internet users claim they were at least experienced once of being harassed online. And majority of survivors suffered a loss of self-confidence and anxiety. So I mentioned earlier about the online harassment, what exactly commonly happened if we go to the next page. So I'm just going to line up There are 5 that we usually receive. The common type of online harassment that we receive normally, it's trolling, image-based abuse, sexual extortion, deep fake mobbing, which is very, very common these days, especially putting somebody else's face to somebody else's body, and then they reshare it on adult website. And this is concerning because it's quite difficult to actually access the website and in the country. And lastly, the impersonation accounts. So one of the cases that are very concerning, and we're constantly receiving more and more, are actually revenge porn, and maybe in some countries it's called intimate image-based abuse, which have become very pervasive issues, causing significant harm to the women, to the girls, their psychological, emotional, and impacting very negatively is also in terms of economic and their social lives. Some of them also have difficulties to find a job, to go for university, or to apply for schools because their photos has been circulated online, and many people and many of the students in the university knows about it. And the stigma and the shame associated with these acts often prevent women and girls from seeking help and support. So last year, we surveyed 252 respondents who are active internet users, and unfortunately, 90.9% of them have been asked by their partner to say nude forcefully. And we're talking a partner, not just a partner that they met online, that they met face to face, but also a partner that someone they only met through a dating online platform. And 54% have received nudes from strangers through social media platforms. And 79.8% they felt really traumatized and shocked by receiving nudes online. We see that online gender-based violence is a pervasive issue that has become increasingly common in the digital age, and the speed and the reach of digital communication mean also that abusive content can spread rapidly across borders and jurisdiction. And this is what often with little accountability or consequences for the perpetrators. And you can see on your desktop, and your presentations in here. So we receive a lot of cases, not just from Indonesia, but also from different countries abroad. And sometimes we also receive foreigners who have interacted with Indonesians being blackmailed to sending money so their nude pictures won't be circulated online. And one of the main challenge that we addressing in order to addressing online gender-based violence is a very complex, especially when it comes to cross-border nature of jurisdiction and law. Victims and perpetrators may be located in different countries and make it very, very difficult for law enforcement to prosecute the offenders and to protect the victims. In addition, there is often a lack of international legal framework to address the online gender-based violence. Sometimes it really leaving the victims without any protections and any support. So sometimes it's very difficult from our end as an NGO to provide support, because in the end of the day, what we can only do is to inform the reporting, the website or the social media platform to report and to ban one basically the perpetrator, but it really doesn't change the way how the perpetrator is not going to do the same actions again and again. So I think we believe that to tackle this issue, a collaborative and multi-stakeholder approach is very much needed. Government and law enforcement agencies must really work together across border to develop effective legal framework that address the unique challenge of online gender-based violence, especially social media companies. They must also take responsibility for the content to publish their platforms, to ensure that the policy and practices are actually designed to prevent and to be able to respond online gender-based violence appropriately. I think we've seen this more and more already. We've been working with Meta as one of the partners for their Stop NCII. And then this is basically the hashing technology that they're partnering with Revenge Porn Helpline in the UK, with I think more than 50 partners around the world. But again, I think there's still a lot of misconception in order how the hashing works and how really the victims can be able to, accessible to use this platform. And
Akita, I'm sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you. We are almost out of time. If you don't mind wrapping up and getting straight to your policy recommendation, because we have two other presenters I just wanted to give the floor to. And
absolutely, Alison, I'll do that. Absolutely, we'll do that. So yeah, from our end, we have 4, basically what we're trying to recommend to the government. One thing is enhancing the effort to address the online gender-based violence. Secondly is improve the SRHR, which is the sexual reproductive literacy, digital literacy, and safety. The third one, increasing survivor-centric resources and support. And lastly, increasing in terms of the cross-border stakeholder relationship between country to country, as well as from the social media platform to ensure that they have a better privacy and reporting mechanism. So I think that's all from my side. Thank you so much, everyone, and I'm happy to connect with all the NGOs and CSO who's attending today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajita. That's such a big, huge area to take on. I mean, seriously, this bullying, and it's just horrifying when you hear about that. Okay, I would like to pass it. I know we're very short on time. What we want to do is just, if you guys can stay a little teeny bit, we'll go to our next 2 speakers, and then we'll do a very, very fast wrap up. And I wanted to apologize. Lujan Netri, can you go ahead? Club de Chicas de Tech. Welcome to the floor, and please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lujan Netri, and I am a referent of Chicas Programadoras, or Class for Girls Who program. First of all, I would like to talk a little bit about my history. I started my journey as a student of the class in 2021 with the aim of defining my university career. In 2022, I went from being a student to a mentor, and this year I was given the opportunity to be part of the coordinating team. What do we do at Class for Girls Who program? Our mission is to increase the number of women in the IT industry. We inspire girls between the ages of 13 and 18 to take interest in computer science, and we encourage them to explore this world in a friendly and fun environment. Well, we also focus on breaking stereotypes about programmers, and we push back against entrenched concepts like technology being a minefield, or that you need to know a lot of math to be good at programming. Well, how do we do it? We teach girls about programming through free virtual or face-to-face class. And in addition, our teaching methods are non-formal and place-based learning styles. Well, we found our club through alliances with companies, public agencies, ONGs, and the school, some of which sponsors our class, and thus allow us to outreach campaign and support our general strategy. Well, it has been 7 years since Class for Girls Who program was created, and 98% of the girls who, after finish their club, and they tell us that their clubs are very good or excellent. And 67% wants to work in the technology world in the future. And currently, we have reached 8 countries, and our goal is to reach many more. And thanks to give me thanks to give me this opportunity to talk, and thanks to inviting me.
So I just wanted to ask if you have some policy recommendations you'd like to submit for us. That would be great. And any ideas you could submit online or you can send to us. We put the link here in the chat.
Yes, then I will send by chat some things.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Next up, we have Guillermo Modia from the Fundación Internet Bolivia. Are you here, Guillermo?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here. I'm here. Thank
I
you.
apologize for the lateness because that is not my
Don't
style. I'm
worry.
usually on time,
Don't
but
worry.
I apologize.
Don't worry. I will try to make it quick. So I know everybody needs to leave. So we are a human rights organization here in Bolivia, South America. We work in digital rights. We work making policy recommendations right now for digital rights and civil government. And besides that, we work with communities direct through help chat or helpline, more than chat, helpline for girls' violence in digital spaces. And we work during COVID with the people in rural areas. Sorry, because as you said, Alison, at the beginning, that there was this need of internet access and internet knowledge and how to use digital educations or digital school resources. So we work with them to help them because they usually have one phone for all the family and the family with 5 children and 5 children, and they have to have the classes at the same time. So that was really difficult in rural areas. We developed a prototype of a low-cost computer with offline educative resources. So this is Raspberry Pi with Moodle or WordPress or other tools that we could put in a school where they don't have internet access, or the internet access is really bad. So they could have these education resources that were made by the government in these COVID times. And we are working in a small city here near La Paz, that is the main city in Bolivia, that is called Coroico, to have a community network there so they could share knowledge. And at the same time, the idea is that people from Coroico could make the network and put resources for the tourism that goes there. That is the main economic thing that they have. So yeah, for us, this is like a presentation. We work in research and we work in policy making and we work with the communities. So for the last thing, that like a policy recommendation. So it's not so big right now, but I think that there's a need for a regulation for community networks. So there's not something that is really spread in all the world, and we need regulation and help from the government to establish and support community networks. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And you were very to the point. And if you have some additional policy recommendations, we would love to hear from you too. So that would be great. So I really appreciate that. And I just want to make a formal apology. I didn't mean to put the people from South America on last. So I want to apologize because we have to fix our list next time. So, okay. Without further ado, I think we wanted to just close out. I really want to thank everybody for their participation. We consider this just the beginning of a dialogue that we are having as we're moving forward. So we do have some upcoming events. Tomorrow morning at the same time, we'll be having another policy dialogue. It's on transparency, trust, and disinformation. And if you'd like to join that, it's going to be on the same Zoom link. And we will be talking a little bit about transparency and trust and disinformation, how there's so much stuff out there that is not true, and it's very tough. So we'd like to get some policy recommendations on what we can do about that. And then we have a list here of additional events. Many of these are virtual events, but there's one coming up on technology enablement. There's one on technology and mental health. And then we're having the inception meeting for the C20 that will be happening in March in Nagpur. And then we're going to be having a fair There's 3 other webinars coming up in April on safety and cybersecurity, AI ethics and data governance, and then World Intellectual Property Day. And we will be having a face-to-face summit in Coimbatore in India, May 13th through 14th. So we just wanted to invite you to participate in any or all of these if you'd like. And we'll be reaching back out to you via email just as a close, and you can let us know any feedback that you have for us, any policy recommendations. And the other thing we're looking for, and this is a very important thing we'd love to have you guys submit, is these udaharans. They're really the case study of what has worked in one country that could be replicated in another country. So if something's working and you have something that you've scaled in one place, or it's working and you're moving to other countries, we would really like to do that. And then you're welcome to register with the C20 and with us. So you can register your organization with the C20. So those are the call to actions on how you can continue to participate and make an impact. And I just wanted to thank everyone for staying. I know this is a little bit over, and we really, really appreciate all of your collaboration. So are there any last questions or anything from the floor? Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, well, if not, I will just close out today and say thanks again. Take care.